Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from. My name is Tina. I'm the Manager of Recruitment Admissions for the full-time MBA program. I would like to acknowledge that UBC's Vancouver Point Grey campus is located on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Musqueam people. We will also like to acknowledge that you're joining us today from many places, near and far, and acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of those lands. Just some housekeeping stuff to let you know that this event will be recorded. The recording will be using various marketing pieces by the UBC Sauder School of Business, including print and online. So if you do not wish to be recorded, please make sure to turn off your camera. And during the Zoom session, during Justin's session, please make sure to mute yourself. And there will be opportunities after Justin's presentation that you can ask questions by putting the questions in the chat box or putting your hands up or unmute yourself. Anana here with me, and she will be making sure that to let you speak if you want to talk to Justin. All right, so in the room today, we have Justin Ball, Lecturer, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Group, Leader, Sustainability and Ethics Group, Robert H. Lee School, Graduate School, UBC Sauder School of Business. So in a couple minutes, you will be listening to his exciting news about the climate track and additional courses we'll be offering for this incoming full-time MBA program in 2023. Also in the room today, some of you probably already have met me. And again, my name is Tina. I'm the Manager of Recruitment Admissions for the full-time MBA program. I hope to see you this incoming year. And if you haven't started, you're planning to apply for full-time MBA program, just remember that our application portal will be open this August. So hopefully to see your applications. All right, so just before I had the session to Justin, I just want to make sure that you know the important dates and deadlines coming up. The final round deadline will be May 2nd, and your supporting documents need to be submitted by May 16th. And the official documents date will be June 30th, 2023. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or email mba@sauder.ubc.ca. So without further ado, I will pass the floor to Justin to start this exciting session.
Thank you, Tina. I hope it lives up to the hype. An exciting session. Welcome to my basement. Good news is it's not COVID anymore, so we won't be taking MBA classes online. We'd be taking them in person, so that's substantially more exciting. But I think what Tina's hyped about is the fact that very recently we got approval from the UBC Senate to offer a new concentration in our MBA program with a focus on climate solutions, and that's something I've been very passionate about for my entire career, and it's something that the new dean of the business school, Dean Darren Dahl, is also very passionate about. So we are doing a lot on climate right now, trying to move at the speed of emergency, because that's what's required of us. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. I want to give you a sense of our vision, some of the people who you're going to work with, some students who have gone through similar sort of climate-focused career, to give you a sense of where the MBA program might be able to take you over the course of your journey here. So what we're trying to do is put climate at the heart of everything, right? It's a research issue, it's an industry issue, it's an employment issue, it's a curriculum issue, it's everywhere, it's eating everything. And one of the things that we've been able to do with real speed is launch this new climate track, which we're so excited to talk to you about today. And so in pursuit of that vision, what we're trying to do is to make sure that we are preparing students to be climate leaders. And it's a lot of work, right? It's not about being worried about climate is not a climate solution. Feeling despair about climate is not a climate solution. Understanding ESG financing and accounting, sure, right? Understanding sustainability reporting, great. Understanding the climate strategy of Canada with a focus on Indigenous communities, important. Right. And so what we're focused on is making sure that as you go through this program, there are real skills and knowledge that are going to allow you to harness the power of the private sector to offer scalable solutions to the climate crisis. Because that's the beautiful thing about business. It scales, right? It scales really quickly, capital scales. And so we've been driven by this vision of a climate solution where, like, look, there's two things that I think are really going to move the dial, right? Climate solutions that attract a lot of customers, right? So it's great if you come up with an innovative new technology, but if you sell it to 20 people, who cares? Sell it to 20 million. And the second thing, the second test that we hold up in terms of the climate solutions that we want to get our students engaged with, that we want to try and scale and promote as a university, is, yeah, it attracts customers and it attracts capital, right? It attracts money. You know, look at the big wins in the last decade in the fight against climate change. And I know it's rare to talk about wins because everyone wants to talk about the crisis and the emergency and how little time we have. But if you look at the big wins, let's use solar panels, for example. What are they satisfy both of those tests, right? It's attracting a lot of capital because it's a good investment. It's attracting a lot of customers, right? Because there's all sorts of reasons, both moral, but more importantly, policy-driven, compliance-driven, reliability-driven, that is incenting people to use that particular technology. And so that's the kind of ethos that we want to bring, you know, to the climate crisis. We understand it's important morally. We understand the ethics of it. But we also need to understand and sort of position ourselves as people who are going to take the power of the private sector to scale these ideas. And this is, I think, a little bit different than, you know, the university in general. This is the unique focus of the business school here. And so what I wanted to do today is talk to you about some graduates from our MBA program, folks that I know really well, and talk about their career and their impact that they're having. And so Kukai was a student of mine a few years ago, and she is having this incredible career sitting at the intersection of finance and sustainability, supporting private equity, supporting venture capital, supporting venture creation through the Vancouver Entrepreneurships Forum. She is just a powerhouse in the climate finance space. And when I talk to her, and which is very regular conversations, you know, she always points back to her MBA as this catalytic experience, right? This ability to develop a relationship with her peers, develop a relationship with her professors, and be exposed to a level of rigor that is just necessary to make the kind of impact that you want in the world, right? That, you know, you're going to sit in the first week of your MBA program and you're going to be like, my God, this is hard, right? They get mad at me for saying this, right? But it's like, it's all fun and games and we're building culture and getting everyone connected. And then you realize this is going to be a lot of work. But that work is exactly what's required of us, right? And Kukai sort of embodies this. Go look her up on LinkedIn, connect with her, send her a message, right? She's a fantastic resource and someone that you join as an alumnus when you come to UBC. But someone who had a different journey, Mark Wandler, right? I remember Mark really well. He went from a career as a flight attendant to an entrepreneur. And he specifically points to a class that we were working on together on the circular economy, the idea of turning waste into a source to grow a business as the sort of the seed, the genesis for him starting a company called Suscrainable. And now they've raised money and they're scaling like crazy and they're for sale in dozens of stores across Vancouver and lower mainland of British Columbia now. And Mark has taken sustainability and turned it into a competitive advantage. The sustainability of his product is core to his value creation process. People buy from him because what he is doing is taking beer waste and turning it into cookies. Let me repeat. He takes beer waste and turns it into cookies and pancakes and waffles and a whole host of flours that are extremely rich in fiber and protein and low in carbohydrates. And it takes the waste stream from the brewing process and turns that into the input for high value baked goods. That is taking like a pain point and turning it into an economic opportunity. And I think more than anything, this represents the sort of the value that innovation and sustainability offer to us, is that we have to look at the climate crisis. We have to look at sustainability, not as like this intense moral imperative, but also as this massive business opportunity. And Mark is finding that with every brewer in the lower mainland. Right. And so to me, this is extraordinary. But the other thing about Mark is if you ever meet him and connect with him, he is relentless. Every meeting, every phone call, every networking event, every panel, every conversation, he is there. He is selling. He is driving. He is committed to scaling his firm as aggressively as he can without compromising on his values. And that sort of represents what we're trying to get to here in the climate space, is that sort of that drive. right? Because I think entrepreneurship is going to be one of the major drivers of effective climate solutions. People committed to a thing. Find beer waste and drive it forward. Turn beer waste into cookies. There's a climate solution. We talk about Emma Herlinger. She just graduated in December. Emma was a student of mine in sustainability and ethics, as well as a class on Indigenous relations and the climate economy. And Emma was just an absolute rock star. Now, she did not come from a business background. Right? She wasn't a finance guru. She wasn't an engineer. She had serious exposure in the nonprofit administrative world. And Emma was able to get an internship during the summer of her program with PwC Canada in their sustainability and climate change practice, because we've been able to build a really strong relationship with the local climate change office here with PwC. And every year they hire 4 of our MBA students as interns. And this year, 2 of the 4 ended up going from an internship to a full-time job with that organization. And so now Emma is like being thrown into the deep end on the complexities and the business arguments and in terms of scaling climate solutions in the private sector in Canada. And Emma, in my view, it shows just how quickly you can sort of get up to speed on the fundamentals of business. And if you bring the right ethics, and if you bring the right level of effort and the right level of emotional intelligence, there's an incredible opportunity for you. And so Emma, I've been communicating with her on LinkedIn. We're chatting all the time, and she's like, well, Justin, it's intense. I'm having to do a lot of math. I have to do a lot of spreadsheets. I got to learn about scientific processes, which I know nothing about, but I feel like I'm contributing. Right. And I think this is the kind of profile and the kind of success that we're trying to set up for our students. The other person I want to talk to you about is Sheldon Fernandez. So Sheldon came to us as an engineer, and we get a lot of engineers, right? I think on average, like 30% of our students end up coming from engineering sciences. And Sheldon was an oil and gas engineer, and I think he might have been living with a little bit of guilt, right? A little bit of like, what have I done? What have I been working on? But he was able to take the quantitative rigor that he had, that sort of exposure to science, that exposure to the scientific method, that exposure to that sort of robust engineering way of thinking. And he took that and we infused him with a sort of a sense of purpose, I think. Right? We worked with him really hard over the course of his program to understand the complexities of the climate crisis, to understand some of the challenges industry is facing. And now he spends all of his time flying around British Columbia doing carbon accounting training and audits and verification schemes for some of the biggest energy users in the province. Right? He's working with companies that sort of you could sometimes say they might be villains in your mind, right? Big energy companies. But he's trying to figure out, like, what are their footprint? How do we shrink it? What's the strategy? How do we audit and verify their performance? And so I think he's a great case of the kind of students who can come in with a technical background and use the language and skills of business to get out there in the world and scale their careers, scale their impact. And so those 4 folks to me represent the archetypes of people that we want to graduate, right? The archetypes of entrepreneurs, the archetypes of financiers, the archetypes of consultants, and the archetypes of technical specialists. Because those are the areas where we think that climate solutions are most urgently needed, but also those are the areas where we think climate solutions are going to scale the most quickly. Right? Engineering, entrepreneurship, finance, consulting. That's where the jobs are. Because largely society has settled the question of, like, what is climate change? People understand it. We've also largely settled the question of why should we do something about it? Well, it's risky, it's volatile, and it causes a lot of suffering. And so now there's this like emergent, and I would argue rapidly growing opportunity for an entire cohort of people who are experts in how. Right? We don't need you to be good at tweeting about climate change. I don't need you to glue your hand to a wall. Right? There's boring, hard, rigorous work to get done. And the people who are succeeding in this program are the ones who are taking that on, not shying away from the challenge. So let me talk about the climate track. So career tracks are a major component of your MBA experience at Sauder. And I'm trying to see if I can remember. I think there's finance, product service management, entrepreneurship and innovation, and tech and analytics. Tina can correct me. I can't remember, but it's okay. The one I'm concerned with is the climate track. And tracks are made up of 3, in our instance, 3 required courses, Each one of these courses is 20 hours in length, so worth about 1.5 credits. And then you have to pick one from a group of elective courses. And you can see the courses here, right? Climate economics and markets. You got to understand the business case. You got to understand the policy context. And so that's why that's a required course. Climate and ESG accounting and reporting. This is like, what are you measuring? How are you managing those measurements? What are you disclosing? What stakeholders are you disclosing this to? What reporting schemes are you participating in? What legal requirements are imposed on you in order to sort of make you a more, sustainable organization? So there's a really nice fit from going from like economics and markets into ESG accounting and reporting that sits at the intersection of finance and accounting. The third required course is a course on indigenous relations and the climate economy. And so this is motivated by a few things. The first thing about indigenous relations is that it's a central part of UBC's sort of mandate as an institution, is to be participating in and contributing positively to the project of reconciliation in Canada. Right? It's just the right thing to do. But what we're also learning is that it's a good business opportunity. Right? If you use the project of reconciliation to build trusting relationships, you will find business partners. You will find economic opportunity. And so this course focuses on two things. The first is like, what is effective Indigenous relations? What role does the private sector have to play in partnering with Indigenous communities? And then the next focus is on, okay, what's Canada's climate strategy? Is it EVs and plastic straw bans? Like maybe, but Canada is a unique country. It's 9 million square kilometers. We're a major provider of energy resources around the world. We're a major provider of minerals and metals, what are so-called critical minerals, right? Necessary for the energy transition that's underway. We're a major provider of forest products, and we manage our forests in all sorts of interesting and different ways, depending on the province you're in. And Indigenous perspectives and involvement in that emerging climate economy are absolutely vital. So we think this is a great way for students to get exposed to primarily the climate strategies of the natural resource sector. And one of the things about Vancouver is that it is home to a lot of natural resource companies. Right? These companies are booming. We are in the midst of a super cycle right now because there's incredible demand for the critical minerals necessary to sort of transition our economy towards low carbon sources of energy and transportation and energy storage. And you can't solve those questions without Indigenous participation. Right? So this is a really unique course that we're offering, and we're really proud of it. Climate and ESG communications is about how do you tell your climate story? Right? How do you bring people along? How do you engage in pro-social consumption? How do you get people to think a little bit differently about their responsibility and role in the climate crisis? Supply chain management is a course that focuses on the operations and the volatility and the risk that the climate crisis creates, and trying to understand how you should optimize the functions of an organization in a world with increasing extreme weather events and volatility. Impact investing is a dedicated finance course, and impact investing really asks students to figure out how can I, play a very positive, important role in not only promoting financial profitability, but promoting positive environmental and social outcomes as well. And so this course sits at the sort of the intersection of those ideas and is taught by like a leading expert in impact investing. Applied Methods and Technology Startups at CDL. That's a bad course name. CDL, Creative Destruction Lab. This is one of probably Canada's most successful venture incubator, right? And so we have CDL has a location at Rotman, University of Toronto, but we also have a partner location at UBC. And at CDL, we have several streams. There's a climate stream, there's a computational stream, and there's a biomedical engineering stream. And then launching in September, when you guys join, hopefully, is also a mining stream as well as a cancer stream. And this is an incubator that focuses on scaling and launching companies that are going to add value and solve problems in those spaces. So I'm very proud to serve as the moderator and sort of the lead for the CDL climate stream. And what we've done is created a relationship between our climate track and that venture incubation program to give climate track participants a sort of a preferred opportunity to work with climate ventures, like hands-on support with climate-focused ventures as a part of their MBA program. And then finally, we have a course on sustainability and innovation. And this is really getting you to go beyond the sort of the basics of entrepreneurship to understand the broader business opportunity that climate represents. And so you get to pick one or two. Maybe if you really like work, you could pick 3 of the courses from the elective list. But you would have to do all the courses on the required list. So I want to talk about a few more people because I think people are everything. We've talked about students, but I want to talk about some of the faculty that you're going to work with. So one of them, this is Jocelyn Lee. She teaches the course on ESG accounting and reporting. She's also an impact manager at KPMG, a major accounting firm here, right? So she's running their ESG reporting team. And Jocelyn brings an incredible amount of energy and perspective and wisdom on how you can use the rigor of the consulting and accounting world to solve these kind of complex environmental and social challenges. This is Eric Unmacked. He's another adjunct professor, and he teaches our course on ESG communications. Eric used to run sustainability reporting for Patagonia and Lululemon and MEC and the Vancouver Economic Commission. You can go look him up on LinkedIn too, but he is an absolute expert in this space, and we're thrilled that he's going to be able to bring that expertise and real-world experience to our climate track. Like I said, this ESG communications course is really focused on telling that story. And Eric is an expert storyteller and will sort of immerse you in the reality of managing a brand and managing its footprint and figuring out how to effectively and authentically communicate that story to a whole range of people, from investors to customers to government. This is Mark Podlasley. He's another adjunct professor with us. And he focuses on Indigenous relations. He's a member of pronunciation of this one, and I am going to butcher it, and I apologize. It's one of the harder. I'm not going to try, but he's a member of an Indigenous nation in the center of British Columbia. He also is a chief sustainability officer of the First Nations Major Projects Coalition. Right. So the First Nations Major Projects Coalition is an organization of 130 First Nations in Canada. 130. Who are trying to negotiate equity participation in projects worth $100 million or more. And Mark is helping run that entire show. And in our course on Indigenous relations and the climate economy, Mark doesn't run the thing. He and I teach it together. But Mark will come in and offer that kind of real world experience and answer your questions and ground you in an authentic, sort of lived reality at the intersection of indigeneity and economics. That's absolutely fascinating. We're so lucky to have him as part of our team. Teaching you ESG and impact investing, James Tansey. So serial entrepreneur. I think he's on his 3rd climate finance company now, right? He is obsessed with market-based solutions and climate markets. He travels around the world to teach on the subjects, has incredible depth and experience in the world of climate finance. And we're absolutely thrilled that he's a full-time professor with us, a research professor, really focused on impact investing and social innovation. And then finally, someone you probably work with is Kate White. She's our professor and senior associate dean of equity, diversity, inclusion, and sustainability. And she's an expert on sort of pro-social consumption and consumer behavior. And so Kate is a fantastic resource for those who are really interested in the marketing dimensions and the sort of the consumer-driven dimensions of the climate crisis. And so, I've not used up too much time, but that's just a review of the track. I suppose I lead it. I suppose I should say a little bit about myself. I did a PhD at UBC. I studied sustainable business practices in large companies. I've done a bunch of consulting. I support 2 different First Nations sitting on their economic development board. I sit on the board of climate finance nonprofit society called Advantage BC. I support CDL Climate. I teach all across UBC on sustainability and leadership. And the climate crisis is my life's work. This is it. And so I'm thrilled that this climate track is here. It has all of my energy and attention. And I'm thrilled at the opportunity to bring in through the first cohort to make sure that we are showing that the intersection of climate and business is an incredible place to play. So I'm happy to spend, however much time you all want to talk about these courses, to talk about these people, talk about Vancouver, or your cat. I don't care. They booked me. So I'm here to take any questions that you might have. So I'll end it there and sort of open up the floor to Q&A. So if you want to use the Q&A feature in the webinar, that's fine. If you want to throw up your hand, I'll take your names. Or if you want to use the chat, that's okay too.
I see some familiar names right there, and I see some of them actually will be joining us this August. So Don't be shy. Ask your questions.
Harshal is asking, Harshal, I don't know how to pronounce that. I apologize. When do students choose a track? I think the track selection happens 8 weeks into the program. something like that. Like
Yeah,
about late October, I think, is where it comes into. So
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And you get to meet all the track champions, and I think we have like a pitch competition to see who can be more persuasive. It's not really a competition though. Danielle's asking me for investment advice. What are some new ESG businesses you would recommend reviewing and investing in? I would look at, the challenge is that a lot of these businesses, Danielle, the ones that I'm familiar with, they're at sort of the venture capital stage, right? We're raising seed funding, Series A funding, that kind of stuff. So it's not easy for the individual to get on board from a public markets perspective. I think that there's some pretty compelling ETFs in this space if you do your research and do your diligence. I'm not going to make specific recommendations, but I think the energy transition is a huge business opportunity. I think that renewable energy companies, critical minerals and metals companies are likely to outperform the market. And so I'd be looking at companies that kind of fit into that thesis. There's a two-parter from Imre. And again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize. Are there industries or causes in particular, agriculture, textiles, energy, social entrepreneurship, that you feel UBC's Climate Solutions program is best tailored to? I would say that what we're probably best tailored towards is preparing you for working in the consulting space, right? So advising big companies on their climate strategies. I think we got the right sort of relationships and content there. I think we're also preparing you pretty effectively for sort of supporting the natural resource industry, because they really have a huge challenge and a huge role to play in the climate space. So I would look at those, two areas in particular. And then the follow-up was, for someone who may be fortunate to have a career already in the sustainability sector, would you recommend the Climate Solutions program, some more general MBA program, or for more tailored experience? Yeah, so this is a good question, right? So like the career track is 6 credits of 38 or something. I can't remember exactly. It's not the majority of your MBA program. It's an important part of your MBA program. But if you're already a climate nerd and you already know all this stuff and you've done climate related stuff, content, and you're really passionate about it, I often say to students, okay, then double down on the stuff you're bad at. You love climate, take more finance courses, right? You already done sustainability reporting, take an entrepreneurship course, right? So there is the option in Sauder to do what's called a custom track, where you select courses across different tracks. So you aren't obliged to take one track or the other, right? Now, most people do tend to take a focus because they think it helps them with their internship and with their career trajectory. But I also think that folks are, everyone can kind of take their own approach, right? So that's worth noting. Sid has a question online. What do you recommend an incoming student does pre-joining their MBA to transition into a career in this space? Any reading materials, podcast lectures you'd recommend to learn about climate business? Yeah, it's a great question. So I could recommend a lot. I don't have let me get my podcast player. Because podcast is how I get most of my information out, because I'm busy. And so it's a really easy way for me to there's a great podcast called Catalyst with Shail Khan. They do an amazing job talking about all sorts of things in this space. Catalyst by Shail Khan. There's one on food called Climavores that I really enjoy reading. What else on my list? There's Goldman Sachs, oddly enough, has a lot of good climate content. I try to pay attention to what they're doing in that space. Bloomberg New Energy has a great podcast called Switched On, which is all about the energy transition. I think that's a pretty useful one to follow. And then another one, The Energy Gang, another great podcast in this space I'd really recommend. So I would go nuts digesting that. For book recommendations, send me a message on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn, anybody, and I'm happy to send you a few links from Amazon or whatever, and recommend some titles. I don't have those off the top of my head, and you don't want to listen to my ranting about my reading list. So those are good questions, though. Thank you very much, Sid.
Justin, there's a lot of questions under Q&A.
There are more. I got to scroll down. Yeah. Sorry. Will there be opportunities for students to explore blockchain for climate action in the program? Anonymous attendee, that's an excellent name. Anonymous attendee, there is a blockchain at UBC program that you can take to support some of what you're doing, right? And so I don't think we have a blockchain specific course right now. There is a finance course that has a strong blockchain focus that you'd be able to take as part of your program. So you might have to sort of package these things together in an interesting way, right? Ty Sampson is asking for some perspective on climate tech and specifically like what's going on in this industry, especially with SVB. Well, look, Silicon Valley Bank and their collapse was a bit of a hiccup for the climate tech industry, and it's helped them mature and helped them realize that they need to rely on a more diverse set of banking options. SVB was really valuable in doing a bunch of project-based financing in the solar industry, but that really has impacted the American solar community-based projects more than anything else. I mean, climate tech is huge, right? And I think we have an incredible opportunity to connect with climate tech in this program, specifically through the CDL thing. So, what other questions? We got Mohammed asking me. Hi, Mohammed. How are you? What are your thoughts on the opportunity of transforming the operation of institutions providing public services to a more sustainable path? It's a tough one. What you have to do is you got to figure out what's the incentive inside, let's say, a hospital environment that'll actually make them want to behave differently. Is it a compliance issue? Is there a regulatory issue? Is there a design option? Is there an alternative technology that's going to reduce volatility or change cost structure? Right? It's tough. It really is tough. Right? I think healthcare is a unique one because your footprint is significant, but pretty small compared to, let's say, transportation or utilities. Now, transportation, it's just economics that's driving change there, right? The policy regime has been set up, the incentives are in place, and now it's the beauty of the market, right, is just kind of dragging things out, right? So it's happening faster than anyone imagined. So Meng Jiao is asking, I'm an engineer in e-commerce, and I want to transition to sustainability. Will I have assistance for picking the courses and tracks? You sure will, right? Absolutely, no question. Will students in the professional MBA be able to take a course or two related to climate action, climate change? I think so. I don't see why not. They are weekday courses, right? So they're not like your usual PMBA weekend courses. I saw Donna Wood on the line earlier. I don't know if she's still here. I don't get that far into the weeds, anonymous attendee, but I think it should be okay. I do teach the PMBAs in Residency 3 later on in their journey, but I do believe some of these would be available to you. Examples of companies hiring in this space that we can look up on LinkedIn. I wouldn't give you company names. What I would look for is like ESG or energy transition. Like look for the kind of keywords: ESG, energy transition, critical minerals. And what you're going to find is that sustainability or climate, it's not often in the job title. Like you'll find like some sustainability analysts or climate analysts, but what we're discovering is like climate fits inside a job description. So like these folks who got hired by PwC in the last cycle, they got hired as a senior associate, and you'd never discover that they were working on climate and sustainability by looking at the job description, right? So you have to be a little sophisticated and subtle in your work here, but those are the keywords I would look at: ESG, energy transition, sustainable finance, impact investing. The consulting world, everyone, all of the big four are all hiring in the sustainability space. Anyway, I saw Mary had her hand up and was able to speak for a while, but now is gone. So yeah. I'll come back to Mary if she ever comes back. Lindy is asking, really excited about the track. Could you share some examples of the work that's happening at CDL? How is this course structured? Okay, so CDL is just wild, right? It's absolutely wild. The Vancouver cluster of CDL has created $4 billion in shareholder equity so far since its initiation. So what I mean is that big financing events have created $4 billion worth of opportunity here. And CDL is compute. Let me repeat. There's CDL compute. So that's like, AI and blockchain and anything like software based. There's CDL biomedical engineering. So this is like new drug discovery and treatments and all sorts of crazy stuff in that space. And then CDL climate is the one that I'm focused on. And in CDL climate, we're working with companies in hydrogen. We're working with companies in kelp. We're working with companies with novel materials, tailings treatment, copper treatment, solar panels, distributed energy technologies. It's absolutely crazy. And what we do in this course is you get embedded with one of those companies as like a venture analyst, and you have to work for them, right? Under the guidance of Daryl Kopty, the executive director of CDL, you have to learn kind of the language and the rigor and the expected workflow, to support these. And then you get to come to these CDL sessions, right? Which are these in-person events where you connect with the ventures and you connect with investors and you get to meet these people. And it's absolutely fantastic. And so it's a great way for you to get connected with folks in this space. So, Imre is asking about case studies within the current program they're able to share. Like, you mean like Harvard Business Review kind of case studies? Like those kinds of things? I couldn't share those off the top of my head. I don't use a lot of them. I like to use live cases. I like to connect people directly to projects. I like to bring industry practitioners in. But you can certainly expect cases with the climate focus, but I don't think I could share anything right off the bat there.
And Justin, there are a couple questions before Lindy's questions. And Natalia asked the question, what are the type of project and cases we'll be working on as part of the climate track?
Yeah. So Natalia, you have to understand like it's like the track is you taking a minimum of 4 different classes. So if you were in CDL, you'd be doing, as your elective for the climate track, you'd be working with a venture. If you're in my class on Indigenous relations and the climate economy, you're going to be working on sort of supporting the strategy of a natural resource company to be an effective and trustworthy partner with an Indigenous community. If you're in the course on ESG communications, you're going to be working on a sustainability reporting and disclosure project, right? So the projects and cases are sort of embedded in the courses themselves, right? And so I have a good memory, but have I memorized the assignments of all of the courses in the climate track at this day? I haven't. I'll be honest with you, Natalia. I haven't got the specific assignments memorized, but those are just a good illustration of like a blend of hypothetical and applied and sort of constrained environments here. So yeah. Are there opportunities to network across UBC? Absolutely, there is. It's not part of the climate track, but one of the great courses at Sauder is called Tech Entrepreneurship. It's an evening course, Wednesday, 6 to 9 p.m. And MBA students can partner up with applied science students like PhD and master's students on thoughts on how to commercialize their research. And so this is like a venture creation sort of simulation, and sometimes companies actually come out of it. And so there's a lot of networking there. There's a lot of student groups and clubs at UBC. There's a Net Impact Society that allows you to connect with other students at other business schools in the Lower Mainland. The CDL allows you to connect with a lot of people if you participate in that. Yeah, there's a ton of networking. And some of that is informal and some of that is structured by the RHL Graduate School. There are lots of different ways to get connected.
And there's a question that is affordable housing considered in this program?
You mean like, do I give you subsidies for your housing? Or like we consider the challenge of urban development and making affordable housing? I'm not sure what take on. There are courses on real estate economics that Sauder offers. I don't think they're part of the climate track, but again, if you did a custom track, you could really get an exposure to the world of development. So it is an important issue, but like, look, we're trying to give the track a real focus. And part of the logic of the focus is it's driven by, we want to make sure that folks who are participating in the track have a good shot at an internship and a good shot at immediate employment outside of the gate. And so that has biased the courses that we allow to count towards the track or not, right? So like, color me pragmatic, right? But I want my students to come out ready to go right off the count, right? So Mary has answers on real estate. There you go. Thank you, Mary. Anonymous attendee is asking, do the Indigenous component of the program also touch on governance? Absolutely, right? We'll talk about consultation and consent and the rights and title framework that industry has to be aware of. Like, we're not going to do a deep dive on it. You don't need to be have that degree of sort of expertise that a lawyer might have, but yes, we certainly will talk about.
There are a few questions in the chat box from EB. Do you do research in what specific area of sustainability?
I did research a long time ago on life cycle assessments and sustainable supply chain management. I didn't love it. So these days I just do teaching and administration. So it was not my passion, but if you love research, there's lots of people to talk to in that space. I think Sid asked the new question about key action steps to take to transition to business-based climate roles for someone without a scientific engineering finance background? That's a good question, right? And it's a bigger challenge. It'd be naive to say it's not, but I think communications and marketing, and there's a big aspect in that space. Sustainability reporting is not technical necessarily, but we wanted to make the climate track have some of those technical sort of requirements so that you get into that space, right? So that you're not afraid of that technical work. Not everyone's going to be a technical role, but like Emma Herlinger is a perfect example someone who came from a non-technical background, was able to use the program to then get into a role where there is a technical element, but it's not the majority of what she does. There can be project management, there can be human resources, all within a climate lens. So.
Justin, there's a question. Are there any networking opportunities throughout through UBC or student across?
Yeah, I think I answered that one.
Oh, sorry.
I think I answered. Yeah. There's a lot. I'll say it again. There's a ton, right? I answered Sid's question. I have answered Ming Jiao's question. Those are all done. I think we've answered most of them.
Yeah.
This is good. This is good.
Yeah, this is a great session, Justin. Thanks for providing all the information. Obviously, This is new track. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Justin on LinkedIn, as he mentioned. Yeah, I see actually some of the names are the student will be joining us this coming August. So hopefully you get to choose some of the courses that we'll be offering. So now I know Justin finished all the questions. Is there any questions for the MBA program itself or anything related to admissions and the MBA program? Please let me know. I'm happy to answer those questions today as well.
Lindy has a question about career services. I think that's probably better handled by if Mary, can we make Mary a panelist so she can talk? On the spot?
Sure. Mary, can you take this question?
Offline. Yeah, sure. Talk to Mary. She's the best. Mary's a legend. Yeah, it'd be the registration stuff. I don't know. I don't know. That's a Tina question.
That's my question.
When can we register for classes?
That's a great question, Evie, and you're getting excited right there. So for courses, I believe in the summer. So it's going to be a few months until you can actually start registering for the courses. But if you have those specific questions, you can definitely reach out to the student experience team, and I'll send you the email address, Evie. Any other questions? Oh. Here we go. I think Mary answered the questions.
All right, that's true. Everything in P1 and P2, which would take you to between like September and the end of November, it's your core courses.
Yeah, and I think someone asked about when we will be hosting those seminars and workshops about each climate track that is hosted by each career champions. Normally, if I remember this correctly, Mary, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, sometime in October that we'll host those seminars and sessions and workshops, and then the student will have opportunity to chat with the career champions and also the Business Career Center coaches before they make their final decision. And the decision will be around mid-November. So you have plenty of time to make that final decision. Yep. So Mary said it's actually typically in late September. Here we go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We have a couple more questions in the Q&A, Justin.
What are new ones? Is it? Yes, Helena, it's absolutely possible to combine this with the JD. I don't think that should be a problem. Anonymous attendee, what are the broad expectations from employers in the impact investing space in terms of qualifications? What kind of job profiles, opportunities in impact investing? There's quite a few. Like, you've got to have your finance, right? And taking the course on impact investing in addition to specializing in finance, and whether you need to do the full career track in that space or just take a few finance courses, but showing some financial aptitude. There's a lot of certifications that you could be trying to take online. to sort of add some credibility to your CV and profile in this space. There's a lot of networking opportunities in this space to start getting to know and connect with the impact investing space here in Vancouver, as well as broadly in Canada. So yeah, I think I'm not an impact investor employee, like a hiring manager, so I couldn't tell you precisely what they're looking for, but we certainly have had a lot of folks being able to use our Sauder as a platform to break into that industry.
Great. Any other questions? It's your chance to ask questions. And Justin, I have a question.
Tell me, sure.
I know that sometimes the student need to prepare before they join the career tracks or any sort of foundation courses for the start of the MBA program. Do you recommend them to start reading something perhaps before they choose the career track, and especially the climate track?
So the good thing is that I do a required course, your first course of the program in P1 on ethics and sustainability, where we talk about all sorts of broader issues. But more specifically, climate comes up on many occasions. So then if folks have questions about, hey, I want to go deeper on this, great. If you want some specific book recommendations, send me an email or go read Project Drawdown or go read, Speed and Scale by John Dewar. Those are my two recommendations. John Dewar, Speed and Scale, Project Drawdown. Yeah, and the JD thing, I do think someone asked about the JD thing. I want to comment, you got to make sure it's aligned. I do think it can work, because what we tried to do with the climate track is make sure that all of your required courses are in the first 4 terms. And so as a result, if students want to go on exchange, they can still go on exchange, or they can find a way to, they're merging to the JD program. I think it works out because of where we put the timing on these things. So that was really deliberate. We wanted to make sure that folks were able to take advantage of joining the broader international MBA community. And, if you end up in Dublin or Madrid or Seoul taking some classes, and as long as one of those has a climate focus, we can make that part of your climate track.
Yeah, it seems like we answered all the questions, Justin, for today. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to close the Q&A. Now, again, if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Justin or to me. I'll leave my email address here. Again, I just want to mention that for our domestic applications and applicants, make sure you submit your application before May 2nd, which is the final application deadline. And also, I have a session coming up, and Ask Me Anything session. And in that session, we'll have 2 MBA ambassadors joining us, as well as the program manager for the full-time MBA program. So take that opportunity to have a conversation or ask questions, and they're more than happy to share their experience with you. And again, May 2nd, final application deadline. But if you are hoping to apply for the 2024 intake, we'll have the application portal open August this year. So stay tuned. Okay, and then can you please put the Ask Me Anything session in the chat box? Here we go. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Justin, for this amazing session. And I'm very excited about this climate track, and I'm hoping I can take some myself, but I have to do my work. But I think it's definitely important tracks that we need to learn. And good luck to our students who are applicants still applying. And please let me know if you have additional questions. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.